And as he showed us, Sharia law is inseparable from the religion of Islam. You can't separate Islam from Sharia law and its social political agenda. And I quote, "It is obligatory on every Muslim to respect and follow the Islamic Sharia in every aspect of their life. It is also obligatory on Muslim nations to implement the Islamic Sharia and make it the source of all law and legislation." That from the mouth of Muslim scholars. Sharia law is the source for criminal and civil law in the Muslim society. Now, given this sweeping dictate, we have to again look at what is the source of Sharia law. I touched on it earlier, but I'm going to give you a more comprehensive source, okay? Dr. Raymond, the former head of the Pakistani Supreme Court, explains that Sharia law is the aggregate composition of 4 key elements of Islam. Number 1, as I mentioned, the Quran, all right, which is the word of God according to Islam. Number 2, the Sunnah and the Hadith, or the traditions of the Prophet from non-Quranic literature, okay? Muhammad's example. Quran and Muhammad's example. Number 3, the ijma, the consensus of ancient Islamic scholars. And then finally, the qiyas, the analytical deduction by Islamic jurists. This from his book, Punishment of Apostasy in Islam. All right, so those 4 elements, the Quran, Muhammad's example, the consensus of ancient scholars, and deduction by modern jurists, together are the fountain of Islamic Sharia law, with the first 2 being the most important. In fact, there are Muslim scholars today that say forget 3 and 4, like in the Quran, or rather in the Constitution of Saudi Arabia. Their constitution just says the book and the tradition. That's it. So some will say it's the 4 of them. Some will say, no, it's just the first 2. Or others will say it's all 4, but the emphasis is on the first 2, the Quran and Muhammad's example. That's why this whole series is entitled, What Would Muhammad Do? All right, let's look at Islamic Sharia law today. Because lest we be tempted to think that the demand that Sharia law be the foundation of civil law is some unobserved legal relic of medieval times, I want to again point you to the constitutions of Egypt, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia. And these examples are the norm, not the exception in modern Islamic nations. The Constitution of the Arab Republic of Egypt opens thus: Islam is the religion of the state and Arabic is its official language. Principles of Islamic law, Sharia, are the principal source of legislation. There you have it. The Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan boldly puts its commitment to the Sunnah, the tradition of Muhammad's deeds and sayings, which are the foundation of Islamic Sharia, as well as the Sharia itself, at the core of its legal system. Here's the preamble. Wherein the Muslims shall be established to order their lives in the individual and collective spheres in accordance with the teachings and requirements of Islam as set out in the Holy Quran and Sunnah. Okay, there it is. Here is an expression, or rather a section from their Sharia court, the federal Sharia court. It says, quote, "There shall be constituted for the purpose of this chapter a court to be called the federal Sharia court. The powers and the jurisdiction, the functions of the court may, either of its own motion or on the petition of a citizen of Pakistan or the federal government or a provincial government, examine and decide the question whether or not any law or provision of law is repugnant to the injunctions of Islam, as laid down in the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet, hereafter referred to as the injunctions of Islam. If the court decides that any law or provision of law is repugnant to the injunctions of Islam, it shall set out in its decision." So they literally have a court that looks at their laws to see if they square up with Sharia law. And if not, the court can throw them out. All right, Islamic provisions. This is in Pakistan still. Provisions relating to the Holy Quran and Sunnah. All existing laws shall be brought in conformity with the injunctions of Islam as laid down in the Holy Quran and the Sunnah, in this part referred to as the injunctions of Islam. And no law shall be enacted which is repugnant to such injunctions. Friend, how can you have the liberties that so many men and women have fought and died for and then have them subjected to Sharia law?